What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going over UFC 317, my predictions for this card. It is Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. And, Ilia, he's been taking down every single star that's put in front of him. Alex, Max, even Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell. Charles, on the other hand, he lost Armin, lost to Islam, but beat the rest of them. All right. First thing we want to go over is the biggest prospects of the card. So, who do we have? We have Jacoby Smith, we have Felipe Lima, and Peyton Talbot. All three of these guys are prospects. I want to remind everyone that, in my opinion, a prospect must be unranked. So Joshua Van, unfortunately, cannot be on here as much as I would love to put him on here. But yeah, these are young, fun, exciting fighters that aren't ranked yet. They have fought pretty good opponents inside and outside of the UFC. And it'll be fun to watch them fight. So yeah, let's move on. All right, next up we got big veteran names that are on this card. We have none other than Charles Oliveira, Alexandre Pantoja, Kai Kara France, Benil Dariush, Renato Moicano, Brandon Royval, and Jack Hermanson. All these guys have been in the UFC for quite a while at this point, pretty much my entire time being a UFC fan. And yeah, they have had quite the roads to get where they are, all ranked, and all of them have had very successful careers so far. So yeah, these are my big veteran names. It is missing a couple, but we'll go over that in a second. All right, now we are on to the fan favorites. I would put Ilia Topuria there. Obviously, he's not exactly a fan favorite. In my opinion, actually, a lot of people hate him, but they find him exciting. And that's kind of what the fan favorites for me are. Exciting fighters, people who just always go out there and put on a show for the opponent, or not for the opponent, sorry, for the crowd. And yeah, that's kind of why Ilia's there, because he always does a great job. Then there's Joshua Van, another fan favorite, absolutely loved by the fans here recently, especially because of his activity and the way he's just been dominating people after that Charles Johnson loss. And he's fighting up like 10 spots in the rankings. So I understand it's a little bit of a short notice fight, but he's quite a fan favorite, and that may or may not be one of the reasons why he's even in this fight in the first place. So that's Joshua Van. And then also on this card, we have Terrence McKinney. And really, Terrence is just such a fun fighter. He is the definition of a glass cannon. He either shoots them down and destroys his opponent within a round or two, or the opposite happens. And always fun to watch, and definitely going to be a finish when he fights. And then, of course, our fight of the night, and that is none other than Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. And really, it just comes down to the fact that these are the two best fighters on this card. Very entertaining. Definitely, probably, hopefully, going to be a finish in this fight. And it's Ilia's debut in lightweight, so a lot of interesting factors going into this, but I think it is the highest level of fight. Pantoja and Kai Kara France are pretty high level skill-wise as well, but I just don't think they bring quite the excitement that an Ilia or a Charles fight have. So that's why it's not fight of the night. All right, now we are on to the first fight of the card, and we have two undefeated prospects here. First time coming into the UFC, so that's pretty cool. Christopher Ewert versus Jackson McVeigh. Honestly, I didn't really research Ewert that much, but he's the favorite. Both these guys like a lot of first-round finishes in their style. McVeigh also took this on short notice, but it's more than a week, so I give him a bit of a little bit more of a chance there, being prepared. But yeah, McVeigh loves to pressure forward. He doesn't really have the greatest technique doing so, but he gets the job done. And he fights with a high risk, high reward style. So, he jumps submissions and just, tries his best to end the fight at any moment, which I just think that when you are fighting newcomers in the UFC, a fight style where you are going out there and ensuring that the fight is in your style. I just like McVeigh because he ensures that the fight goes the way he wants it to, and with taking a lot of risks and things like that, I can just see him being able to get a finish a lot easier than Ewert could. And because of that, I'm going to go with McVeigh, and I'm going to go by KO. I could see him knocking down Ewert and then submitting him as well. But yeah, I'm going McVeigh. Very, very, very low odds there. Both of these guys are newcomers, undefeated, a lot of confidence coming in, and it's kind of hard when a lot of the tape you're watching on them is just random 30-second fights you see on YouTube between both of these guys. So, yeah, I'll go with McVeigh, but not super confident with that one. All right, next fight, another one where we have a newcomer here. It is Jonato Diniz versus Alvin Hines, and I really, really like what Hines is doing here. He's 10-0, undefeated, big underdog here as well. But Hines is a good grappler, and he starts a lot of his finishes on the ground. And so he does have a head kick knockout, which is crazy for a heavyweight. But I just see Hines being athletic enough to grapple Diniz. Diniz did not look good in his last one when he did get grappled, and I think Diniz could try to stay away from him and kind of keep him at range, at bay there. But he has such bad grappling defense that I think it could get messy for him, and Hines probably will make this really, really dirty. And it's heavyweight, so I don't really trust the skill level, especially people who are unranked, and that's kind of why I'm going to go with Hines, because his grappling is just the biggest thing here. I think he probably can survive the striking of Diniz. He doesn't show to be that much of a killer. I mean, Diniz got taken down by Austin Lane. He's not any good at all. So if Hines can take him down a little bit and kind of lay and pray a little bit, as I've seen in a couple of his fights, he doesn't lay and pray, obviously. But it's heavyweight, so they don't have the greatest activity on the ground. But nonetheless, I can see Hines getting this done on the ground and just smashing Diniz's face. And I'm going with KO. Definitely could see a decision. Definitely could see Diniz winning. Like I said, this could go really either way. I like Hines simply because of the grappling factor, but this could be anyone's fight. But speaking of fights that could be anyone's fight, this is certainly not anyone's fight here when it comes to Nico Price and Jacoby Smith. You can see by the odds alone, Jacoby Smith is the biggest favorite I think I've ever seen. Maybe Malcolm Wellmaker, just as big, but yeah. Nico Price has not looked good lately, and Jacoby Smith is just a great prospect, good striking, good grappling, finishes fights early, and yeah, it's just not a good matchup overall. And I have Smith winning by first round KO. I give him a little worse odds. I think like minus 1,000 is 90%. There's a 10% puncher's chance for Nico. He is a veteran, fought a lot of great guys, but at this point in his career, it's not happening. Alrighty, next up we got a banger. Terrence McKinney is fighting Vyacheslav Borshev. And yeah, McKinney's a favorite here. Kind of almost 2-1. I'm impressed by that, considering the fact that Borshev is a fairly good striker, right? And fairly good grappler and just kind of just decent overall. But really what it comes down to me is, Borslev has really lost to lesser opponents than Terrence McKinney lately. And even that one win in August 2024 was a split decision to James Lyontop. I mean, that is just not convincing at all, in my opinion, for a fight against Terrence McKinney. And Terrence is a first round finisher. So even though he does lose quite often, his striking and grappling is good enough, I think, in the first round to just dominate Borshev. And yeah, I don't know. In my opinion, Terrence McKinney really only loses to like a little bit higher level of opponents, those fringe top 15 opponents, and Borshev really isn't that. So I just see Terrence McKinney being able to knock Borshev out, and yeah, I give it fairly decent odds, about the same as what they got. So yeah, Terrence McKinney. And next up, we got the women's fight, which is Viviana Araujo versus Tracy Cortez. Araujo, old, slow. Tracy, young, good grappler, has gone 5 rounds against Rose. She did get outstruck, but I just don't see Araujo being able to do that. Really, Tracy is supposedly the better grappler. I mean, she does have a win over Jasmine Jasdavicius, which is looking better by the day. And I just don't see Araujo being able to stop the grappling that Tracy wishes to impose. It'll probably be like a 29-28 lay and pray ground fight, but whatever. Cortez is going to win by decision, and I give it minus 200 odds. Pretty decent for Cortez. Next up, we got an absolutely beautiful fight between Hyder Emil and Jose Delgado. Hyder Emil, honestly, in my opinion, even though he's 11-0, he should be 10-1. I thought he lost to Gomez against the Frenchman there, and it wasn't really that convincing of a win for me for Emil. Gomez is kind of a stick and jab type of fighter, and it's really not that great when you're losing striking battles to people like that. And with somebody like Jose Delgado, who is absolutely a great striker and has submission ability too, I just don't like those odds. He has power in his hands, and he's very efficient when he fights. And because of that, I'm going to go with Delgado. He should be able to do pretty much whatever he wants in the striking. And I see him going to decision. I don't see Hyder Emil being able to be knocked out. He's got the chin of a granite block. And so, yeah, I'm giving Jose Delgado a little better odds, or a little worse odds, I should say. But that's simply because I don't think he'll be able to knock out Hyder Emil, and that could lead to some fatigue issues if Jose Delgado doesn't play this right. But yeah, I think he should be able to win that. All right, next up we have the featured prelim fight for UFC 317, which is Jack Hermansson versus Gregory Rodriguez. This is a interesting fight. Jack Hermansson, on paper, has all the skills it takes to beat someone like Gregory Rodriguez. He can grapple. He can strike well enough that he's not going to lose instantly and get knocked out. Jack Hermansson has that win over Joe Pyfer. So he's got a decent chin on himself. His grappling is his grappling is sneaky, and he can be quite troublesome against Rodriguez. If he puts up a good fight against Joe Pyfer, I see no reason why he can't do the same thing to Gregory Rodriguez. Rodriguez, on the other hand, very good striker, and he pushed quite a pace in his last fight against, Jared Cannonier. I almost forgot. How could I forget that? I think his grappling, Gregory Rodriguez, is good enough that he can stop Hermansson if he's going to go that route. And he's big enough and has the physical advantages to use those as well to really not allow Jack Hermansson any sort of offensive opportunities there. And because of that, and because this is a 3-round fight, I think Rodriguez should be able to win this. He should be able to nullify the grappling of Hermansson's for a couple of rounds. He has good cardio. I know he gassed out a little bit in that Jared Cannonier fight, but Rodriguez has good cardio. He absolutely put a pace on Cannonier in that first round, and if he did that to Hermansson, I'm not sure Hermansson's going to survive it. And because Gregory Rodriguez has the grappling, I just think that he should be able to win this fight, and I'm going to take him by KO. Just overwhelming Hermansson in first or second round there with a big flurry of punches after he's stopped a takedown. And I give it a little bit worse odds because I do see Hermansson's pathway to victory, similar to his Joe Pyfer win, but being 3 rounds, I just don't think he'll have enough rounds to win a fight that method. Alrighty, next up we have a absolutely beautiful fight between Peyton Talbot and Felipe Lima as the first fight on the pay-per-view. These are 2 huge prospects in the bantamweight division. Peyton Talbot, he was fraud checked by Barcelos in his last fight, and he needs to improve his grappling if he wants to be better, if he wants to be the best in this division. And that's a big if, right? His striking is great, super duper slick, and he can strike with basically anyone if he's given the opportunity to do that. And that's where it's a question. Is he going to be allowed to strike with Felipe Lima, or is he going to be in a grappling fest? Because Talbot can absolutely rip any opponent's head off if he wishes, but is he going to be allowed to do that by Lima? Or is he going to be able to stop Lima's takedowns enough to give himself an opportunity on offense? That is the question of this fight. Now, Lima, he is a good grappler, and I certainly think he can take over the fight there. He's very young as well, and I want my brain to say Lima should be able to win this here because Lima is a little bit more of an efficient fighter. He will take the path of least resistance. Somebody said this, but I think Lima's just a little more invested in his UFC career compared to Peyton Talbot. Talbot has things going on outside of the UFC. He can do his videos and whatnot with Frank Ocean. Lima, this is really his only thing. This is all he ever cares or dreams about. And that's a little bit disheartening. But I think that Peyton Talbot is young. And I think he's smart as well. And so I think he'll be able to make those adjustments. I think he showed that he can get up. He can, stuff the takedowns if needed. And I don't think Lima's striking looked that good. It's serviceable, but it didn't look that good, especially against Miles Jones, whatever his name is. John Miles. What is his name? Oh, my God. Whatever. I'm going to skip that. But, really, this fight comes down to how much better did Peyton Talbot's grappling defense get in the past 4 months and 5 months, actually. And does he really care enough to be a good fighter, or is he going to be just another dude in the UFC? Lima has all the skills to win this. Talbot has been unproven. But I'm going to go with Talbot, man. I'm going to go with Talbot, and I'm going to go by KO. I just think that Lima's striking isn't good enough, and I really hope that Talbot is improving. If he doesn't improve, it'll be quite disheartening, and honestly, all hype is gone. I'm going with Talbot by KO, but I would really give him like 30, 35% chance, and that's really not the way I should do this if I didn't want to. That's why I'm giving him very low odds, but I think he's going to be able to get it done. I hope he's able to improve enough as a young fighter to win. And this is really more of a wishful thinking than a prediction. If I was truly doing it via betting, I'd obviously probably go with Lima. But I don't know. There's something about Talbot. I just want him to win this one. A lot of people have been off the hype train, and I think he has the skills to win it. So Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van is the third fight on the pay-per-view for UFC 317, and Royval, man, has gotten so good. He has looked amazing. He's been a well-rounded fighter, especially in his last outing against Tatsuro Taira. He was able to stop the wrestling, even use some of his own wrestling, and more importantly, his offensive striking looked good. It looked really good. Um, Obviously, his loss to Pantoja worried me that his wrestling wasn't going to be good enough. But Pantoja is just a different level, man. And I'm realizing I said third fight, and this is the fourth one. So, whatever. I guess I just don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, besides the point. Royval can stop Tyra's takedowns. He can do his own on Tyra. And I really think that on top of, or adding in the striking ability that Royval has, that is a dangerous, dangerous combination that he can take this fight anywhere he wants. I don't know if people know this, but Royval has like 70% of his wins by submission or something crazy like that. So he certainly can submit people on the ground. He's a good ground grappler. And Van, on the other hand, very good at stuffing takedowns. He can do things similar with his boxing and his hands, but he hasn't fought the level of opponent Brandon Royval has. Brandon Royval has fought the best of the best in this division. Win or lose, he has fought the best. Joshua Van, best win is probably Bruno Silva. That is not that high level, right? And you can look good a bunch of cans, but once you start getting into the good high level opponents of the UFC, I'm not sure that Joshua Van is going to be able to beat those people. So how do I see this fight working then? If Van might not be able to do that? Well, I really don't see a world where Van is going to go backwards. He has never done that in his life. He always pressures forward, and Royval, he'll sometimes go back if his opponent pressures him like that. So, yeah, that kind of nullifies a lot of what Royval can do in the wrestling if he's going backwards. It's really hard to grapple going backwards, and so I don't think, especially against Joshua Van's great takedown defense, that he will be able to use his grappling if he's going backwards like that. But Royval in his last fight showed he has the heart of a lion. He's willing to win the fight by any means. And, he's really tall and long. He mixes up the grappling. He can put a high pace out there on Van too, because this is a 3-round fight. We saw Van lose to Charles Johnson. Now, that's a little bit of a fluky performance because Johnson kind of came out in the third and instantly blitzed him, and Van kind of just wasn't prepared for it. I don't see Royval being able to do that, but it does show that Van, he got dropped in his Edgar Chairez fight, I believe it was, as well, second round or something, right after that Charles Johnson loss as well. But it shows that he does make mistakes. He can be beaten. And if you put a pace on him, if you go fast and kind of blitz him a little bit, it could be a problem. But really, that means that Van's getting pressured. And, the striking's probably even to me. I don't think that if Van's pressuring Royval, will be able to get any takedowns. And 3 rounds, although I would say it would favor Royval since he can push the gas, I'm not sure about that. I mean, Van has shown in his last fight he can throw a million strikes and walk out of there a month later and fight, right? And so I just think that, in my opinion, my prediction, I'm going with Joshua Van by decision. I think he's going to be able to pressure Royval just enough to stop the takedowns, especially when Royval is going backwards. I would love for Royval to win this fight. That man is very much the most disrespected fighter in really the UFC, in my opinion. I think he said that in media day as well. So I would love Royval to win. Obviously, he probably can't fight Pantoja because I think he has 2 or 3 losses to him already. But yeah, man, this is a great fight, and I can't be sad either way this goes. Whoever wins, this is a great fight. All right, next up we got Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano, Money Moik, right? Um, you know, Beneil, I think really what it comes down to here is who is a better grappler. I don't think the striking is good enough on either side here for it to really matter. So, what about the grappling? Beneil is a good enough counter grappler that I think he should be able to stuff and effectively grapple Renato Moicano, or out grapple him, I should say. Moicano doesn't have the greatest takedowns, kind of just fell into the Benoit Saint Denis takedown in the first round. And yes, it was probably a 10-8, 10-7 round, but I can't see Beneil Dariush getting taken down that way at all. Beneil absolutely looked great against, I believe, who was it? It was Gamrot. That's what I meant to say. He looked great against Gamrot, and Gamrot is one of the best takedown artists in the UFC, or at least he shoots a million of them, and they can be at weird times and can really, I guess, surprise you. And Beneil definitely was able to stop that and win that fight. And so I just see Beneil being a better grappler there. And with 3 rounds, it favors Beneil. He's going to be able to push a little bit of a pace. I don't think Moicano could really push a pace like that. He gets hurt in all his fights as well. Moicano looked all right in his title fight, but his striking was slow and his grappling wasn't good enough when he went up against a real high-level grappler like Islam Makhachev. And I think that Beneil is just a better grappler, better striker. I don't really see Moicano with a real easy path to victory against Dariush, not outstriking him, not out-grappling him. And so because of that, I just see Beneil Dariush being able to win this one. He's going by decision. I don't think he can finish Moicano. I'd be impressed if he could. And I actually give it fairly good odds for Beneil Dariush here, even though he's the underdog, which I do not understand at all, really. But I guess it's a close fight according to the bettors, or the odds makers as well. All right, the first of 2 title fights on UFC 317. We have Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. And, Pantoja has looked great lately. And he's faced a lot of good, explosive, offensive strikers. Urseg, Royval, even Kai Asakura. And they all have kind of different styles as well in their striking. And he was able to nullify it all and win every single one of those fights. Urseg making it look the closest. And Kai, on the other hand, his most recent win was Steve Urseg. He knocked him out in 1 round, which is pretty good, actually, although Urseg has taken quite a tumble since then as well. So I don't know how to really rank that win. But before that, Kai lost the split decision. A lot of people consider it a robbery, so not going to look into that too much, but he has a legitimate loss as well in July of 2023, so really lately for Kara-France, it's not that good, but he's the only one left to fight Pantoja, so I guess Pantoja just has to beat him one more time. Already beat him on The Ultimate Fighter, so just one more time, I guess. And I don't know, man. I don't think Pantoja, you can knock him out. Figueiredo couldn't do it. He knocked him down barely, and Pantoja should be able to just eat it on the chin if he needs to, nullify the power and striking ability of Kai. And from there, I can see Pantoja just getting into the clinch and, I don't know, somehow taking him down or taking his back, and Pantoja just submitting him. So Kai really has a lot of power, and he could possibly knock out Pantoja, but his chin has shown, or Pantoja's chin, I should say, has shown that. I just don't think that it can be cracked. And Kai, honestly, in my opinion, a lot of his striking isn't all too skillful. A lot of just bombs being thrown. And I don't know if that'll work against Pantoja. It might, but Pantoja should be able to just win this in really a similar fashion to how he beat Kai Asakura. So, yeah, I'm going with Pantoja for the first title fight of UFC 317. We're on to the main event of UFC 317, and it is Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. And, you know, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but I think Charles is going to be really, really big compared to Ilia. And that, in my opinion, makes the grappling really interesting because, how good is Topuria's grappling? It kind of has yet to be tested, right? I mean, you could consider the Bryce Mitchell win, Ryan Hall wins grappling testing that, but Ryan Hall didn't really grapple him, kept pulling away from those leg locks, and the one time he did, he just knocked him out for it. And then the Bryce Mitchell win, Bryce Mitchell's a bantamweight now, so I don't really know what the grappling will look like when it's against somebody who is as big and strong as Charles Oliveira, especially with how Charles looked when he fought Michael Chandler. Is Ilia going to fall for the same fate? I don't know. But on the other side, the striking, which is how every round will start. The striking of Ilia is great. It is very precise, and he should be able to knock Charles out if he really wants to. Not because of his power, but because of his precision, his timing, and his speed. He hits people with strikes they don't see coming. And that is something I think that most people need to acknowledge. Because, yes, Max has one of the greatest chins ever, but he didn't see the strikes that Ilia was throwing coming, and that is what knocked Max out more than anything. Ilia has this amazing timing and precision to hit people clean on the chin when they're least expecting it, and that is what makes him such a special boxer and grappler. Charles, on the other hand, we have Charles, who he has been hit before many times, even in his last couple of fights, right? But I don't think he's ever been hit as clean as Ilia has hit people for it to be comparable, right? We've seen him get hit by Gaethje and Dustin, get knocked down, and he kind of just fell to the ground, and they didn't want to grapple with him, so he ended up recovering. Ilia, he hits people so cleanly, they don't really get up a lot of the time. But even if Charles survives that, I think Ilia will swarm on the ground. And so I don't think it'll be comparable with how other fights go for Charles in terms of him being able to be hit and keep going with it. So, yeah, Charles has heart. I just think it doesn't matter when Ilia hits you. It's too clean, too precise. It shuts the lights off. And although I really want Charles to test the grappling against Topuria, is he going to be able to get in close? I don't know. Right? Charles, I think, should try to use his size advantage, get in the clinch. He has like a 20% clinch strike ratio, which is crazy because most fighters are like 10%. But yeah, I think you should use that clinch and try to slow Ilia down a bit. I just don't know how effective it will be for Charles. And against Chandler in his last fight, it worked fairly well. But I just don't think that a fighter of Ilia Topuria's caliber will accept bottom position so willingly like Chandler did. And because of that, I think Ilia will be able to get up and strike again with Charles. And it's really for that reason that no matter how good Charles does in the grappling or the striking, really, even, I just see Ilia having that KO ability at any point because of his precision. It's not the power. Remember, he doesn't hit that hard, in my opinion. He doesn't absolutely murder people when he touches their chin like Francis Ngannou. it's more so about him being able to land it so cleanly right on the chin, right when they least expect it. And I think Ilia should be able to find that at least once against Charles Oliveira with a clean hook. And yeah, I just see Ilia getting up from the grappling maybe in the second round, um, and he kind of puts Charles on the cage a little bit and goes to work and knocks him out, similar to um, the knockout with Volkanovski almost, where he's kind of backed up to the cage and just lands bombs. So, yeah, I'm going with Ilia by KO, as sad as it is, but I give I give Charles some decent odds. And he definitely has pathways to victory using his attributes and size and his grappling to slow down Topuria. I just don't think that Topuria will accept those positions, and as well as Topuria being able to land that shot at any time really ruins any possibility of Charles being able to get through 25 minutes of clean not getting hit. That's not happening. So Ilia by second round KO. Yeah. Okay, we are on to the betting notes for UFC 317. Yeah, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. We have, I believe it is 3 big favorites on their cards, and big favorites knock out their opponents fairly often. 41%, which is 11% more than the current rate. And so, because of that, if you are a fan of, let's say, Jacoby Smith or Renato Diniz or Ilia Topuria, they might be able to knock their opponent out a lot more, which I believe that's what the betting odds say for those people. And yeah, I would go with a knockout if you are going with a favorite, just because it's a lot more common, 11% more. Speaking of more common, favorites, very slight favorites from negative 100 to negative 199. They win 53% of the time, so just a little bit more than the average 50%, obviously. And I like those odds. I like those odds for 6 of those fights, having small favors like that. It's about what you would expect, but it's a little bit more. And it's just something to keep in mind that the favorites win a little bit more often when they are a favorite by very little compared to very big, which that doesn't make sense, but whatever. Anyway, our next one I wanted to note is that there are 3 fights that are under 145, all of which I believe are on the main card, so that's good to know. But they don't knock each other out that often, 21% of the time. So if you're going with somebody like a Van or a Talbot or a Kai Kara France to knock out their opponent at those lighter weight classes, it is not common. I don't know if I should go with those, right? I believe I went with Van simply because of his ability to out grapple or stop the grappling of Royval, but not because of his KO power. And same thing with Kai Kara France. I couldn't choose him over Pantojic because the KOs aren't as likely at this weight division. And yeah, Peyton Talbot. I'm going with KO simply because I want him to win more than anything. But yeah, I wouldn't choose him, like I said, if I was betting, because the KO rate is so low. And then finally, the favorite decision rate is 51%. So decisions, if you're picking a method, the favorites tend to go to a decision a bit less often. So that suggests that you should be able to win a little bit of money choosing the method of victory for favorites rather than just the money line. So yeah, that is a couple of betting notes. And of course, we have the parlays and confident picks. Obviously, I don't have a lot of confident picks here, just Pantoja and Jacoby Smith. Everyone else, there are a lot of close fights, a lot of good matchmaking, and the bettors agree with a lot of it, right? Royval, and Van fight very close. The Beneil Dariush and the Moicano fight very close, and there are a couple of other ones as well. So with that, I would not parlay most of these. You can win big if you parlay all the favorites, right? $9,000, but really, you're probably just throwing $100 away because I doubt that most people will be able to get all of these fights correctly. And if you want to parlay just the minus 300 favorites, who are pretty big favorites, right? They're 70% ish. You're winning $70, so you're not even winning that much if you're parlaying just the big favorites. But that's just something to note there. I would kind of pick and choose my bets with this fight card and maybe go with some methods or over-under round victories, which might be a little easier to predict, such as a Terrence McKinney less than 2 rounds. That is almost certainly a hit. And so I would go with something like that. All right, I have a couple of graphs here that kind of just show a little bit of what I'm thinking when I'm choosing these fights. So I used a lot of the data from the UFC website, so I don't have a bunch of those people who have never fought in the UFC in the first couple of fights on here, but you can see kind of how I graphed it with fight efficiency versus fight potential, finish potential, I should say. So you can see somebody like Terrence McKinney can finish a fight a lot, very, very often. Jose Miguel Delgado as well. While people like Tracy Cortez go to decision very often. And on the other side, fight efficiency, that just means how often are you striking your opponent without getting hit back, as well as I believe I have takedowns versus takedowns defended. And so you can see fighters like Jacoby Smith, Ilia Topuria, Joshua Van, Felipe Lima. I would consider those high-level fighters if they are efficient with their striking and grappling versus a Nico Price, a Borslav, Sigridis Dumas, who isn't even on this card anymore because he just got out of prison, which is crazy that Dana's trying to make him fight. But besides the point, what is important here is that I would kind of almost choose my opponents based on who is the most efficient and highest finishing potential at the same time. So, for example, let's go with somebody like Peyton Talbot, who has a little bit of finishing potential. As you can see here, he's kind of in the middle of the graph. I would say about like 200.2 on the finish potential and negative 0.1 on the fight efficiency. So I would say overall, in summary, he'd be a 0.1 on this graph versus a Felipe Lima, who's a negative 7 on the fight efficiency and a 7 on the, or negative 7 on the finish potential and a 7 on the fight efficiency, which would leave him at a net 0. And so Talbot would be a 0.1 favorite, in my opinion, to Felipe Lima. And you could do things similar to that. Obviously, it doesn't work exactly like that, right? When you have people like Jacoby Smith who are just off the charts good. But it's something to keep in mind. Okay. And then we have the same thing on durability and pace and volume. So you can see somebody like Jacoby Smith, Terrence McKinney, Jose Miguel Delgado, Joshua Van, all put on crazy paces onto their opponents. And some of them are durable, right? Joshua Van can get hit quite a bit and be fine. Viviana Araujo can get hit. Borslav can get hit a little bit and be fine. But then you have people like Terrence McKinney who get knocked out often, not very durable. Charles Oliveira, a little bit lower on that durability graph there. Really, the reason I wanted to graph those two is just to show kind of the outliers of people who go crazy in their fights. They really just make their opponent wilt under the pressure, and that's kind of what I'm going for with it. So you can see somebody like Joshua Van can wilt his Brandon Royval if he puts on a pace and can take all those shots. Same thing with somebody like, let's say, Hyder Emil. He can take a bunch of shots, put on kind of a pace on Jose Miguel Delgado, and win that fight. unfortunately, Delgado is a little bit better on the pace and volume side of things, but that's besides the point. What I wanted to give you is just a little bit of insight into how these fighters look in terms of their graphing when we look at them. All right, and so we are finally on to the card review. I'd give this card a 7 out of 10. You know, there are 7 or 8 out of 11, 12 good fights here. It could be better, obviously. Main event's awesome. Main card, really, other than that Peyton Talbot, Felipe Lima fight, are main card worthy. I would hope that maybe they'd add in a different fight, but what can you do about that? So, yeah, just decent card overall. Early prelims, if they could stack those a little more, I'd be a little bit higher up on this card, but it is what it is. Big fights, there's like 4 or 5 of them on the main card and or not early, on the prelims. So, yeah, that's that. And at the bottom, you can see my confident predictions versus all predictions, which looking at it now, those should be flipped. I don't know why they're like that, but about a 61, 62% rate there. So not too bad. And yeah, that's really it, guys. So UFC 317, those are my predictions for the fight. And if you guys liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.